And we're back. Welcome to News 6 at 9:30. News 6 weather at 9:30, I should say. And the happiest of Halloweens to everybody out there who's tuning in this evening with me. I'll right out of the gate say I'd much rather be in costume and in full roll right now, but duty calls, and we're back here in the Digital Weather Center talking all things spectacular weekend and Halloween weather for us Central Floridians and for a number of us across the eastern half of the United States as a trough really digs down, kind of in part to what Melissa has done to influence the pattern. Goes back to that infamous catchphrase of mine. It's always a give and take with Mother Nature. Jamaica and the Caribbean islands down there were absolutely ravaged by what was once Category 5 Hurricane Melissa, now no longer a thing. Fully a remnant low now, extratropical, not even on National Hurricane Center's page anymore. And because of the wind flow around it, we've yanked all this cooler air from up north as far south as Central Florida. So to tell you the truth, we're going to be filling some time tonight because there really isn't too much to talk about. So we're going to have some fun on this Halloween Friday night that we get to spend together. So good evening to everybody joining us over on News 6 Plus, as well as everybody tuning in over on the News 6 YouTube channel. It's great to be talking weather with you all this evening. I do apologize. I don't know why my voice is in and out. Was practicing clearing it out just in time for this stream. Let's go ahead and get you over to the radar before we go any further. This kind of just sets the stage. This is what we have in play right now. You would almost think that the radar was completely frozen, like it wasn't even working right now just looking at it. We don't have anything out there, and we're not expecting any kind of big time rains, let alone any thunderstorms for the foreseeable future. You could see maybe just a little bit of the clutter near to the Melbourne radar, but that is about it. We have such copious amounts of dry air right overhead. Look at that. Just an enormous ribbon of very dense dry air that's been yanked down. But then if you look off towards the left-hand side near where the letters of Dallas and Albuquerque are, you can kind of see a little ribbon of moisture out there, a little filament, if you will. Just a small pocket of moisture working its way out of the desert southwest and into the southern plains. That, believe it or not, is part of what Melissa has done in terms of its influence on our jet stream pattern. It's almost going to be kind of like a pseudo El Nino type setup with a low really digging down along the upper Gulf Coast. Models earlier on were showing this to be a bit more of a significant feature, maybe a little bit more rain, a little more wind with it. Now we've definitely backed off on that, and we're looking at your classic coastal low setup where you get some counterclockwise turning in the winds, and as a result, we're going to reinforce the dry and cooler air that we have around there. As a result of that dry air, when I switch this over to our SAT-RAD, the combo of satellite and radar, you really can't see anything out there altogether. If we were to look way up towards the north there, look towards the top, near where the banner is, satellite and radar, you can kind of catch a little glimpse of that red L and a little bit of snow and rain mixed up there. That's well up into the northeast. That's the same system that has draped the front down through the Caribbean and across the rest of us and the Gulf, which is also helping to cool down our water temperatures just a little bit, which is good news. There have been some on and off signals I saw over on the YouTube chat a little while ago that there's already folks talking another storm for portions of middle November. Now, as we get deeper into the show, we come back from our first break. I'll talk to you a little bit about that, what I'm seeing and what my genuine thoughts are. But for now, let's go ahead and just enjoy the weather that we have in front of us and for the next 7 days, because in terms of any significant tropical activity, I'm just not seeing it. JNSI, as we used to say at the 25th OWS. Now, looking at our current wind and wind gusts, a little breezy, might even be a little more nippy in the air just because of that breeze we have coming down. You can see that classic northwesterly flow coming across the peninsula. Some of us have dropped off in terms of our winds, likely because we've gone inverted, as it's called. Once you have a cold front come through and you get high pressure to settle in, you invert the atmosphere by having the coldest air at the bottom and then warmer air above it. And because you have the warmer air above it, coldest down at the surface, the heavier, more dense air, you're not going to get any lift. That's why today there was not a cloud in sight. Beautiful weather, rocking into your Halloween night. I stepped outside earlier, and I'll openly admit with you all, because I'm a big fan of Halloween, my heart hurt a little bit. Walked outside, and I'm like, shucks. This is spectacular weather. I wish I could talk weather from out in the parking lot or somewhere out there in Orlando right now because it is fantastic. And it's such a nice rhythmic change in comparison to this time last week when we were getting ready for that cutoff system to come through. Another example of that give and take nature of Mother Nature. That same cutoff system that dumped flooding rains on us and a rogue tornado warning in Brevard County is actually what helped guide Hurricane Melissa away from Florida. Had it not been for that same storm system that kind of gave us a bit of ridiculous mixed bag of weather criteria last Sunday, we would have probably received a major hurricane, to tell you the honest truth. When you look at the temperatures outside, we are definitely settling in. Gainesville, Palm Coast coming in at 53 degrees, Wildwood at 52. Wow, let's all take this in together. Really spectacular temperatures out there, even for the East Coast, where we typically remain just a little more on the mild side because of the warm Gulf Stream waters off the east coast of the Florida Peninsula. Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach at 57, Titusville at 61, Melbourne and Mico also at 61, downtown Orlando coming in around 60, the rest of us hanging out in the upper 50s. And to tell you the truth, I'm ecstatic to get off tonight because it's definitely one of those nights where you roll the windows down, jam out to some quality music, especially after the roads have settled a little bit. Oh, I live for that. I live for nights like that. And when you look at our temperature change, we've definitely come down. You can tell the front had passed through us yesterday because compared to this time 24 hours ago, a lot of us are anywhere between 3 to 6 degrees below where we were yesterday. Look at Cocoa Beach coming in at minus 12. Massive difference compared to yesterday, which is very impressive to tell you the truth. And that's going to be the kind of song and dance we follow, at least for a little while longer, since we know the chilly weather doesn't like to meander with us here in Central Florida. The warmer waters off both of our coastlines. Warm being relative, of course, for this time of year, although it is a little bit hot still, kind of, we'll say lukewarm. We won't say hot, but definitely still a little lukewarm off our west and east coast, especially with that loop current in the central Gulf, which we'll tie into once we get to the tropical portion of the segment. And that's why we tend to mix out that cooler weather before it could marinate with us for far too long. And if you managed to tune in with us during the 9 o'clock show with Ginger and Mike, we had mentioned that this was one of the chillier Halloweens we've seen in a while. Well, when you take a look at some of our Halloween extreme temperatures here, back in 2019, we actually had a high temp in Orlando of 91 degrees. Imagine that. So I'll openly admit I'm a big fan of slasher films and scary movies. So anytime Halloween comes around or there's a spooky convention, I'm all about the masks and the layering up the makeup and the cosplay and all that. I would not want to be walking around as a hockey masked villain, let alone rocking the Shatner mask and coveralls in 90-degree weather. I can only imagine what the heat index must have been like, because where there's warm temperatures in the state of Florida, there's usually a lot of humidity. So we are definitely lucking out right now. In my opinion, we've definitely hit the nail on the head. When you look at our forecast lows for tonight, we're dropping even further than where we are now. Gainesville going down as far low as 43, Ocala 44, much of us hanging out in the upper 40s, low 50s. And then for your afternoon highs tomorrow, we are barely going to make it into the low 70s across the board. So when we come back, we're going to take our first little 3-minute break. We're going to talk a little bit about the tropics, and then I will open up the floor to any questions, comments, or concerns you may have. Let me know what you're doing for spooky night, and if you've got any big plans for the first couple days of November, or as we rock through November and count down the final 30 days of the hurricane season. And don't forget, Sunday, we're gaining an hour back of sleep, which I'm also excited about. So don't go anywhere, folks. I'm going to leave you on Source 2. We'll be right back. All right, and welcome back to News 6 Weather at 9:30. We're going to get into the tropical portion of it, and I've got good news. I'm just going to let you know right now. Spoiler alert, definitely looking good for the month of November, at least for the time being. Before we get there, though, I did want to show you this. So we've got the latest precip outlook from Climate Prediction Center, and they're actually keeping us slightly above average in terms of our rainfall, at least for the first half of November, which is good news. The reason I bring that up is because when you look at their full month outlook for rainfall across much of the south and east, we're starting to see that La Nina pattern build in. And we're looking at below average chances of rain as we go through the month of November, and this will likely continue for a large majority of the fall and then into the winter season because of the configuration that we're under in the tropical Pacific. La Nina tends to favor a more mild winter and a more dry winter. And when there's dry weather here in Central Florida, the drought likes to sneak back in. I looked at this just updated yesterday, Thursday. This comes out every Thursday. And I was kind of disappointed. We've gotten a lot of rainfall out there, and yet we've built back our excessive drought conditions across much of Central Florida, which is rough if you ask me. Definitely a rough look out there, and this is probably going to grow in size as we go through the month of November and then through a large majority of the winter time ahead of us. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not like we're not going to see a drop of rainfall, but if you all recall last wintertime, not the 2023 into 24. 23-24 was characterized by an El Nino. We had tornado outbreaks, a lot of severe weather. That's what typically happens with an El Nino setup in the tropical Pacific. But again, since we have the cooler waters out there extending off of South and Central America into the equatorial regions of the Pacific Ocean, we're looking at dry conditions likely kicking it with us for much of the winter time. Now, let's actually get into tropics. So I was a little astonished that Climate Prediction Center actually went back on their word. Their previous iteration 2 Tuesdays ago did not have our region highlighted for any kind of tropical activity. And you can see the light shades of red there indicating an above 20% chance that we see something in the form of a tropical system, whether it be a wave, a disturbance, or maybe even our next depression, try to form up between the dates of the 5th and the 11th of November, getting close to the fateful Veterans Day for all my veterans out there. And then as you go deeper into the month, they actually extend it out in that same general area where we saw Melissa first take shape out there. There is some reality to this, and I'll show you that right now. We're actually going to switch over to a website of mine that I really enjoyed looking at. It's called weathermodels.com. We're going to look at our, quote, velocity anomalies. And where you see those shades of green typically favors rising motions, your more favorable atmosphere for tropical things to try to spin up out there. And you can see we get a nice little wave of favorability that comes through as we go through the first half of November. It hangs out with us until about Veterans Day. Then we go back into that squished, suppressed phase where we're actually sinking more than we're lifting things out there across the tropics. And then as we get into the midsections of the month, we get a little bit of a combined effort between the Eastern Pacific for one last hoorah, and then a bit of the Caribbean as well. And when you look at the latest 46-day outlook, I'm noticing that the Euro especially, and this is starting to show up on the AI models as well, that there is a pocket of enhanced rising motions that will favor the Atlantic and the Caribbean as we go just after Veterans Day on the 11th out to maybe, we'll say the 25th, just shy of Thanksgiving. Is it out of the realm of possibility that we still get one more named storm? Absolutely not. I personally think the Atlantic has one more named storm on tap before we fully close out the hurricane season altogether and we can finally say bon voyage. Now, in terms of our current depression activities and probabilities out there, when you take a look at our latest guidance, let me go ahead and update this for you all. There you go. Now we're finally seeing it progress through time. There was that little blip down there in the Southern Caribbean, but our models have really dropped the ball on it. They're just not liking it anymore. And I think the main reason is we're going to have such routine cold fronts and digging troughs coming across the United States, reaching down through the Yucatan Channel into the Western Caribbean, that whatever Central American gyre may try to spin up, despite the meandering tropical waves trying to behave like seedlings down there, I'm just not sold that we're going to see anything. For the first time in a while, I can comfortably say the season might just be over. And if it is over and we don't see another percolating system down there or a signal that's worth tracking, then we definitely went out for a grand finale. Recovery efforts are ongoing in Jamaica, Eastern Cuba, the Bahamas, and the Turks and Caicos, and Jamaica especially. We got to work together and come together as a weather community to try to dig into some of the resources and the outlets or connections that we can make to try to get those folks some aid. Because while the eastern half of the island was hit by the water, the rain, and a little bit of that surge, the images that are coming out of Western Jamaica, particularly from a few viewers of mine and some friends that I have down there, some of the images and the videos that they've captured is just heartbreaking, to tell you the truth. You can definitely tell that a Category 5 hurricane went through that area. The whole region, the whole western half of the island just looks completely changed. Total structural failure, just as mentioned by National Hurricane Center, has depicted by the Saffir-Simpson scale of hurricane intensity. Buildings totally gutted, trees debarked. You would think an F5 tornado about 50 to 100 miles wide went through down there. So, Lord willing, we can say that the hurricane season is officially over and we can close the doors on 2025. And you best believe I'm going to start providing y'all with the outlooks for next hurricane season, because between you and me, we had a lot of wins this hurricane season, from our hotspot forecast, general track tendencies, the big one that we predicted from back in January, February, give or take. Shout out to some of my viewers over on the YouTube channel right now. But that's neither here nor there. We can talk about that another time. We got to go to another break. We'll be right back with you here in about 3 minutes, so don't go anywhere. Once we come back, I'll open it up for some questions, and then we'll get on out of here. Continue to enjoy our Halloween night when I go dip out to get on television. So we'll talk to you all very soon. Don't go anywhere, folks. All right. Speaking of home stretches, we are now into the final stretch of your News 6 weather at 9:30. So I hope you've brought some questions for me. If not, we'll just continue to shoot the breeze about all things spooky, and we'll talk a little bit about what November may have in store for us. So I know that up at News 6 Plus, you guys don't exactly have access to a chat. However, if you want to join us over on the News 6 YouTube channel, feel free to do so. Always happy to have a conversation with everybody. Let's see what we've got going on in the chat right now. Kimberly Couch thought for a second I was trying to manifest a storm, it seems, and I am absolutely done with this hurricane season, to tell you the truth. It's not behaved by itself whatsoever. Although I will say this, I do want to pull something else up while you all are populating some questions in the chat. I do want to show you one thing that does make a lot of sense. So check this out. This here is going to be our accumulated cyclone energy. Typically, kind of gives you a breakdown, if you will, of the quality, the duration, the intensity, and unfortunately the impactfulness of the tropical cyclones that will occur during a hurricane season. That black line dead center in your darkest shade of greens is your average accumulated energy. Just the amount of energy that we would typically get in one of your more iconic or routine hurricane seasons. And if you look, even though we had some dead periods there where we bumped up, then leveled out, bumped up, and then leveled out, for all intents and purposes, this was a pretty normal hurricane season. We did end up rounding out the above average percentile. If you look where we are now at about 133 ACE units, all thanks to what Melissa has contributed to the hurricane season. We are now officially in an above average season. And since we still have about 30 days ahead of us, that's why I'm talking present time. I'm not, talking in absolutes, because knock on wood here, we all know how Mother Nature likes to toy with us sometimes. So you never know. I'm still going to keep my eye on the tropics, especially with those favorable periods coming up towards the middle portions of the month after Veterans Day. But as we anticipate the conclusion, no matter how you cut it, we did end up having an above average and above active or above normal activity type of hurricane season. And it'll be interesting to reach out to Dr. Phil Klotzbach and pick his brain on his thoughts for the finale of the hurricane season as we rack and stack the totals and whatnot. Which, by the way, I'm really excited, and I'm already starting to plan out my not only pre-seasonal forecasts for next hurricane season, but I'm already looking at trying to attend the South Padre Island event in April. And then we're actually having the National Hurricane Conference here in Orlando next year, which I'm pretty over the moon about, which means it's going to be a beat bop and a skedaddle to get out to that and meet and greet a bunch of the wonderful folks out there and talk tropics as a collective unit. So let's see. I don't see any questions in the chat tonight. So with that being said, we got about a minute out. I will go ahead and just start to close on out. Folks, it's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure getting to talk weather with you on News 6 Weather at 9:30. I know I'm not a routine face. Jonathan is enjoying the night off. I'm simply filling in tonight for the night side shows. But as we get ready to close out, I hope you are enjoying the fall festivities out there. Mother Nature has finally given the ball to us. It's in our court. We're not tracking any significant weather as we go over the next 5 to 7 days. Hopefully we can keep it that way as we rock through November. Thanksgiving is already on the horizon, and I honestly can't say it's pretty mind-blowing that Halloween is here, and in the next 2 hours, just like, I forget his name, in Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, he says, you could take that costume off, Halloween is over. It's mind-blowing how fast time has come and gone, and I kind of sit there and think to myself how fast another hurricane season has gone. Feels like just a couple weeks ago I was at the convention out in New Orleans earlier this year doing all the preseason stuff, rocking with you all through all the different systems that we tracked this year. Miraculously came out of it unscathed. Nothing for the United States outside of a quick tropical storm Chantal, which I feel like everybody has already forgotten about. So definitely, instead of a bust, this hurricane season was an enormous blessing for a lot of us out there. Just unfortunately, not all of us dodged all of the bullets. Always that give and take. Always that give and take. There's a time to admire Mother Nature's abilities and another time to respect it and kind of just know your place whenever it is she decides to act up. So we'll talk to you all again very soon. I will see you on the other side if you want to tune in for our 10 o'clock show. But until next time, you know the saying, whenever I'm at the helm, This is the Digital Weather Center signing out.